With a WWE legend potentially returning for a feud and more, this is Wrestling Rambles. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Giving advice to pro wrestlers that don't get much time on television, The Miz told Busted Open Radio, sometimes you're not going to have the main event storyline, and it's your job as a WWE superstar that if you get 1 minute on Monday Night Raw, Friday Night Smackdown, you better make it a meme-worthy, talked-about-worthy minute, and I tell this to all the younger guys who are like, yeah, but my storyline isn't here. I don't have a storyline. Yeah, but do you have time on the show? If you have time on the show, you have the ability to connect with an audience, and it sucks because 1 minute sometimes isn't enough time. You have to figure it out. You have to, or you're not going to make it as a main event. And by the way, once you start doing those 1 minutes where you start making meme worthy, talk about worthy, then it comes 2 minutes, then it becomes 3 minutes, then you get that main event storyline. And guess what? Then when that main event storyline goes away, you're still able to keep yourself at that level. And that's what I've been able to do. I didn't do that the first time I had the WWE Championship 12 years ago. When I had the WWE Championship, I had the main event caliber. I was in every main event, but once I lost that title, I lost that main event storyline. I couldn't figure out how to get myself back into it until I would say maybe 5 years later, and that's when something clicked in me and I was like, this is how I do it. This is how I build myself whenever I'm not in the main event caliber stuff. This is how I insert myself into something that is relevant, that means something. Addressing the fact that Jon Moxley bleeds in many of his matches in AEW, Jim Cornette said this on his Experience podcast. He's hung up that he's a tough guy. No, you stupid son of a... You're not going to have blood every time out because most guys in the wrestling business, instead of just slicing themselves open in any random match, would rather save it for when it will make them some money and mean something at the gate. But you do you. Speaking of Moxley, ESPN's Mark Raimondi wrote on Twitter that AEW's Jon Moxley won his division in a jiu-jitsu tournament Saturday in Ohio. Moxley took home gold in the men's beginner 30 years old and up no-gi division at super heavyweight, 225 to 249.9 pounds. The tournament was the Naga Cincinnati Grappling Championship. Moxley's wife, Renee Paquette, would post a picture of Moxley and their daughter with his medal, as she wrote, "When Daddy gets first place at grappling tournament." Mentioning the run that LA Knight has been on in WWE, Dutch Mantell said this on his Storytime podcast. He has a certain vibration about him, a vibe they say when he walks down to the ring. I get a little bit of a Stone Cold Steve Austin vibe when I see him, even more than The Rock. But he's a great talker, a good worker, and the people like him. Even being a heel, I've seen this a lot of times. You put a performer out there and you want people to dislike him, yet on the other hand, they go the other way. So you have to listen to them because if you continue to push him as a heel, the fans will bail on you. We don't want to see him that way. We kind of like him. With John Cena having done more Make-A-Wish requests than anyone, Bruce Pritchard mentioned this about a preference of the C Nation leader during these interactions. Saying on his podcast, John hated doing Make-A-Wish if there was presence of any kind involved. Even our own people. John would always insist on their wish wasn't to be surrounded by cameras and press. Their wish was to meet me, and they're gonna get an experience with me, a one-on-one experience with me. And I'm not doing it for publicity. I'm not doing it to have people say what a great guy I am. I'm doing it because a dying child asked to meet me. That's John Cena. The battle to get John to allow us and allow Make-A-Wish to acknowledge him for everything he had done was a bit of a battle. He's like, why do you want to recognize me for something that I do because it's the right thing to do? That's not work to him. That's just his love, his appreciation that someone appreciated him that much, and that was his give back. He truly loves those kids and loves doing that. So that's the real John, and that's the guy that, you know, when people point to Make-A-Wish, oh yeah, they're doing that publicity. Man, the fight to even be able to say it was a fight. It's about one thing, and it's about that kid that day, that moment. That's their moment. That's my moment. It's not your moment. That's theirs. And you know, eventually you got to the point where parents, Make-A-Wish, and everybody just bragged on it so much, and okay, yeah, you know, we made it public and so on and so forth, but you never heard about all the Make-A-Wishes that he did. It's a big deal when somebody from Hollywood goes and, you know, makes a wish come true. As many as John's done, as many times as John has looked at his schedule and said, hey, I've got 12 hours. I can make a flight, you know, 4 hours someplace to go meet a child, spend a few 2 hours with them, and then fly back 4 hours and do what I needed to do. Instead of saying, I'm gonna sleep, I'm gonna train, I'm gonna go eat at this restaurant or whatever, it's like, no, I'll make that work. You don't hear about that stuff, and again, that's the thing that makes John Cena the human being, the great human being he is, that then makes him the huge megastar that he has become. It appears that AEW had a meeting before their Saturday show with Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful writing that we're told that there was a talent meeting at last week's AEW Collision. We're working to learn more about it, but many talents on Dynamite had no idea about it. It appears that the former WWE tag team of Breezango will be reuniting on the independent scene as NGW Tennessee announced that your new NGW champion Tyler Breeze teams up with Dirty Dango to form Dirty Breeze. Live October 8th at Nightmare in the Old City. Be there at Jackson Terminal in Knoxville, Tennessee. Asked about former WWE star Ryback making a return to pro wrestling, Jeff Jarrett said on his My World podcast, "In this day and age, we'll go back to our social media. He's obviously polarizing. That sells tickets. That's it. I just think it's really that simple. It's funny how the opinions can become so polarizing as if that's a bad thing." During an interview with WrestleBinge, Sgt Slaughter said this about not receiving an invite to Undertaker's Hall of Fame induction. "If you're listening, Mark Calloway, I just want to ask you one thing. I found you in a box of tapes. Sgt Slaughter found you in a box of tapes, and I called you 3 times because the first few times you hung up on me because you didn't believe it was me. But finally, I gave him the office number, and I said, ask for me when you call this number. And he said, oh, it is you. I said, yeah, it is me. Guess who you didn't invite to the Hall of Fame? Me, Sgt Slaughter, the guy that found you. The guy that brought him to Vince McMahon and said, here's the guy. This is your guy. Can you imagine not being invited to his Hall of Fame? I should have been in the front row." On social media, WWE star Shotzi Blackheart posted a video revealing that she is getting engaged. Here's the clip.
Yes.
It looks like AEW assigned the voice of Ring of Honor to a contract, as Sean Ross Sapp reported that Ian Riccaboni is signed on the dotted line with All Elite Wrestling and Ring of Honor. Fightful Select has confirmed that Ian Riccaboni has signed a multi-year contract with All Elite Wrestling. He has served as the ROH play-by-play announcer and will be working several AEW Collision dates this summer. He appeared on the July 15th show and received heavy praise both backstage and from fans for his performance. Riccaboni was one of the last original ROH contracts to last through the acquisition and was brought aboard. We're told that Riccaboni was actually originally offered the role to do AEW Collision full-time, but cited prioritizing family as a reason he didn't want to do it full-time and recommended Kevin Kelly for the spot. Riccaboni will call the next 4 episodes of AEW Collision and will also spell both Kevin Kelly and Excalibur when they need time off. He's primarily been calling Ring of Honor shows remotely. For a health update on a main roster WWE star, it was reported that on WWE Friday Night Smackdown, Pretty Deadly's Elton Prince was sporting his arm in a sling. PWInsider.com has confirmed Prince has suffered a separated shoulder. There is no word how long he will be out. Speaking of injuries, an Impact Wrestling star will not be needing a procedure following an injury, with Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful noting that the former Impact World Champion, Steve Maclin, was slated for Slammiversary until an injury pulled him from the show. We were told more would be known this week, and we've learned that Maclin sustained a groin tear. Fortunately, as of now, it doesn't look like it's going to require surgery. It was also said that a return timetable isn't known at this point, as it remains to be seen what the future holds for Maclin. When it comes to rumors that Carlito was going to be returning at MSG for WWE, Ringside News noted that WWE has a lot of plans in the pipeline and Carlito could be a part of that. However, we can confirm that there was never a plan for Carlito to make his return at Smackdown in Madison Square Garden. With a feud forming between Grayson Waller and The Rock, Steve Carey of Ringside News mentioned that Grayson Waller threw shade at The Rock during SmackDown. This raised a lot of attention. We are told that there is no current plan for Grayson Waller versus The Rock. That being said, Rock is hurting for positive publicity, so there may be something in the works. A WWE star was granted his release as he did not want to work under Vince McMahon. WrestlingNews.co writes, PW Insider reported this week about Eric Young possibly being the person who returns to Impact Wrestling to team up with Scott D'Amore tonight at Slammiversary. Young had been under WWE contract since 2022. Fightful Select reported that Young spoke with Triple H last year about returning to the ring. Young has said in interviews that he felt like he had a lot more to give as a wrestler rather than in a backstage capacity, and he expressed issues with working for Vince McMahon. He also talked about WWE system being broken, but that was before McMahon stepped down last year. With Triple H running creative, Young was brought back last November but never did anything of note on TV, and he would ask for his release just months later. Fightful noted that Young asked to be let go in April 2023, and it was granted. His 90-day non-compete ended last week, which makes it possible for him to appear tonight at Slammiversary. Fightful cited WWE sources saying that Young did not want to work under Vince McMahon after he returned to the company in an official capacity. Young cited moral, creative, and personal reasons for why he didn't want to work under McMahon. Many of you will recall that Young's previous stint on the main roster was lackluster, primarily because McMahon did not see much in the Sanity faction. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.